Today, we are talking with the Miss Hayley Paige. This episode has been highly anticipated, and I am so happy to be able to share it with you. Like I mentioned in Monday's episode, I followed this legal case closely and believe it sets a precedent moving forward for all creatives on social media ownership, trademarking, brand protection, employment contracts, and also how brand deals are formed. We get to hear from Hayley herself on what it was like having her social media account taken away, how she plans to do things differently moving forward as a business owner, the core people and mentors that she has on her team to guide her, advice she would give young creatives and talented entrepreneurs, and what the future holds for her as she now moves forward with her name and ability to design in the wedding industry again. I do want to give a little legal background here on non-disparagement clauses and how that impacted Hayley's ability to answer any legal questions that you as listeners may have had regarding the lawsuit and her thoughts during that period of time. So her settlement agreement with her previous employer contained a non-disparagement clause. These clauses are really common to have in settlement agreements that prevent parties from making negative comments about each other moving forward. She is now bound to that, as is JLM Couture, because it was a mutual non-disparagement clause, which means that she is very careful to answer in any way that could potentially be interpreted as defamatory or disparaging. So as such, and as an attorney, I was very, very careful and respectful in this interview to not bring up anything that could invoke this clause. All right? Okay, so let's get into it. Welcome to the Legal Paige podcast, Miss Hayley Paige.
Thank you.
You are one of the most well-known faces in wedding fashion for this generation as both a dress designer and now a phenomenal women's shoe designer. You're a champion for small business owners and artists with your nonprofit advocacy foundation that helps protect young creatives, and you've really outshined a lot the past few years. We have been prepping our listeners for this episode, and someone recently said in a comment, and I wanted to read it to you. I have been following her story from the beginning, and I am beyond thrilled she never backed down. She is a freaking phoenix. Miss Hayley Paige, please introduce yourself and tell listeners a little more about your business and artist journey to get to this point right here in the middle of June 2024.
Thank you so much for having me, Paige. And yes, I'm Hayley Paige. We share that name in common. And I'm mostly, I think, known from the wedding dress world, but more recently, I've gotten into the women's shoe space. And I was involved in a legal dispute for a few years that kind of altered the trajectory of a number of things in my life. And I'm kind of on the other side of that storm now. So I'm excited to share that I am Hayley Paige and I can design wedding dresses. And I recently also acquired the intellectual property portfolio of the Hayley Paige trademark. And I'm just really looking forward to making up for lost time.
Absolutely. Well, I know myself and our TLP audience can't wait to see what you do moving forward, making up for that lost time. Okay, so I want to go back to 2011. Did you have a lawyer when you were first signing that employment agreement?
I did not.
How do you think having a lawyer would have helped you during that pivotal moment in time?
Yeah, I think hindsight is 20/20 in this scenario for sure. And now I've really come to appreciate all that attorneys do to see the value and protection on all sides. And I say that as somebody that's gone through the experience that I've been through, as well as a small business starter, in knowing why you need to have these checks and balances on both sides. So I can fully appreciate why you need to be set up on a nice specialized field based in the law. And I've also come to appreciate that contracts kind of allow you to create your own agreements and arrangements. But of course, outside of general contracts, the way things are interpreted is very important to keep into account as well. So yes, I would have probably gone back and probably hired a lawyer. I don't know how it would have made a difference. I just don't know at this point. But something I always share with younger generations is that it's good to hire people that are really smart and specialized, way beyond what, a lot of us creators are.
Absolutely. Such a good first takeaway to always hire out help. and find people that can help see things when you can't. So, how did you get your career started as a designer? What did that look like in your early years?
So I got my career start years ago, right out of college, working for a high fashion company. And then I always knew I wanted to be in bridal. And so I worked at a company called Priscilla of Boston for almost 4 years. And then I handled a licensing agreement for Marchesa at Priscilla of Boston. And that experience was incredible, but it also kind of made me realize how much I wanted to have my opportunity to ring lead my own collection. And so when I was 25, I received an opportunity. And at that time, I think I was just very eager to show people what I was made of and very earnest and excited. And I think I relate to a lot of young creators that just want to get the dream fulfilled and figure out all the details later.
Oh, I'm positive all creatives can certainly relate to that. I want to briefly ask you about the trademarks of the Hayley Paige name. Can you let us know how those were filed and then registered? And I believe that you now own all of those trademarks under the settlement agreement, correct?
The contract was an employment agreement. And in that agreement, I gave the right for my name to be trademarked because it would be, it was the name of the collection I was designing.
Okay, so a lot of our audience asked questions that I think is going to get into answers that you're not able to give because as I was reviewing the settlement agreement that you had with your previous employer, there is a non-disparagement clause in there. Would you mind talking about how you came to terms of the settlement and really felt good moving forward?
Definitely. I am so grateful that there was an opportunity to basically be on a trajectory of positivity, right? Because I had been in a legal dispute for 3.5 years. And I think we all kind of pray and hope for resolution. And in my case, I'm very, very excited that there was an opportunity to acquire my entire intellectual property and also retain my name or receive it back or however, that works in a legal verbiage. But it was something that I really grieved and thought I would never get back. And so to have that detachment and then all of a sudden be reunited with it, it just was this complete influx of positivity. And, it's interesting because while a legal dispute is very much in this category of law and the judicial system, and there's so much you want to respect there, it is still like a dispute. And the minute you're outside of a dispute, everything just kind of falls by the wayside. And so for me to look at everything I had gone through for the last few years, it all just seems like, I just am so excited to move forward. And the one thing that came from my particular case, which I'm really hoping and praying will have a positive impact on the legal community, is that the district court had awarded my Instagram account back to me prior to the settlement. So this was something that kind of got put into action from the Second Circuit. And I think it will positively impact anyone that uses social media, both personally and professionally, which is a lot of people. And, it's just great to see hopefully some positive momentum from that ruling. So yeah, to have that on top of a settlement, all very, very positive, very positive.
Right. The Second Circuit remanded back to the district court and asked them to take a look at a more reasonable interpretation of the non-compete in the employment contract and also the ownership of the social media accounts, which I believe then at the beginning of May, the district court determined that you were the property owner of those social media accounts, which is great legal precedent set, if I don't say so myself. I am very interested in what you just said about your social media accounts because a lot of us market online and through our social media accounts. I feel like as business owners, one of our biggest fears is having our social media accounts taken away. What was kind of going through your mind at that time?
It was definitely shocking at first. And I think we all tend to suffer more in our imagination than in reality. And a lot of the last few years have been a journey of really strong character development. But I think one of the best things that I did for myself was just try to take accountability for as much of it as possible, because there's really no productivity in really trying to say, okay, this happened because of this. You just kind of take it on and say, let's find a way forward. And with social media, it's really interesting because I started a new account. I started really investing my time in a new brand account as well as a personal account, which I usurped my fiance, and I had started this podcast account. And so while there was some evolution to it, I felt like I at least could still share part of my life and reach socially a community digitally. And so I learned that it's really important to have that participation, and that as long as you're still kind of showing up for people and those people are showing up for you and supporting you, it's a very positive thing. And so along that journey, I thought it was very interesting because while I still felt like it was important to participate in the lawsuit, in that, I've got to show up for this and put it kind of in this category over here, I was still able to represent some form of expression. And I feel very privileged to have been able to share my story. And that was very cathartic in a lot of ways.
Yeah, you were really the first celebrity online to showcase your personal experience of what a lawsuit was like on social media. You gave people kind of a glimpse behind the scenes from 2020 to 2024. And honestly, people really championed alongside you. It was great for others to see that you can weather a storm publicly and still shine such a bright light. You really, truly do carry yourself so well, Miss Hayley Paige. And it was important for others to see that. Where do you see yourself going now with social media? We're only a couple of weeks out. So I'm sure you've gotten that question before. Are you going to run all the accounts? That seems like a lot of work.
Yeah, I know. I know. It's funny because I kind of felt like when I was ready to make a statement and just share with people the good news and share in the excitement of getting my account back, it came with this enormous ownership of I have my name and I'm able to design again. And so it just felt like just a big fun pile of leaves that you fall into in the fall, and you're just excited, and it's the changing of the season kind of thing. And I guess there is a part of me that just wants to make sure I'm still showing up with sincerity and that I'm doing the best I can to have an authentic representation, right? And so it's funny because I have all the glitters on the gram. I have my She is Cheval account. I have a Girl You Might Know foundation. And now I have Miss Hayley Paige back. And I'm still on all of them, doing all of the work, responding to all DMs and trying to be present. But I also think there is probably going to be an opportunity for me to really fine tune how I show up on each of those accounts. And I don't want to just do like mass content, the same stuff on everything. I want each to feel like a different, unique experience. And I think as an artist, that's really exciting because on this account, I'm just going to do really funny stuff and like the occasional like life at home, and then over here, we're going to be more fashion driven and more about romance and wedding dresses, and then over here, we've got our shoes, but we've also got some fun nostalgia. And so it's kind of nice. And I think I've looked to inspiration from other artists, really, when you think about Taylor Swift, the goddess she is, what she's done with her brand and created these eras and kind of brought back her music to a new generation, that for me is like, well, that makes sense, because you can kind of continue to keep it relevant, but still moving your story forward. And so that's kind of something I want to do with all these accounts, but I also don't want to overwhelm people. And so in my inner conscience, I'm always like, is this too much? Like, maybe I should slow my roll. So it's in process, but I'm excited and just feel very, very humbled by my experience and excited to make up for lost time.
you're just still kind of learning, right? Like social
Totally.
media it's truly a journey. I feel like social media is a journey. We're always
Yeah.
adapting. Now you have all these accounts. I love that you're so connected to these accounts. And now you're just figuring out how to like intertwine and weave them all together and share with the world what your story is going to be. And you're a creative, and us as creatives, our stories are always changing. We're always
Yeah.
creating. So I can't wait to see how you weave in maybe some dress designing in the future. I'd be interested to hear. And of course, your
Absolutely.
shoe collection.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with your shoes. I think a lot of people are. So those obviously go really well hand in hand together. And then your foundation as well.
Thank you. I'm excited too. I think we need some, matching shoes and dresses for sure. And I want to keep Cheval moving forward and somehow weave the brands together in the right ways, like their sister brands. And Cheval was really a moniker for me and an ability to move forward with my creative expression and learn shoemaking. And so I think there's going to be some fun overlap when it makes sense. But yeah, I think the support has been really profound for me because when you feel that, you feel the support and you feel the people that are just your inspiration and showing up for you, it makes you want to make sure you're showing up for them too. So I feel lucky to have that.
We're lucky to have you, honestly. We're very lucky to have you as someone who's a champion for all of us. What advice would you give young, talented creatives who get approached by big brands? Maybe not employers, because a lot of us like to run our own businesses, but a lot of times they are getting approached by people to partner with or joint ventures or bigger brands. What
Yeah.
would you tell them?
I think it's really important to have advocacy in your life and people that can look to answer questions that you might not be asking. I think a lot of times as an artist or a designer, you're very caught up in your craft and you have this really strong devotion to what you do. And that can make you put up the blinders at times. And just speaking very, very generally on that mindset, it's you don't know what you don't know. And so it's always good to try and be patient and wait for a little more information. And I think one of the biggest lessons I learned in going through what I have is that I'm a very positive person naturally. And I love bringing sparkle to women. I mean, it sounds so silly, but it's like, I just love that. I love being able to create a dress or a pair of shoes that it's a communication, right? And if it shape shifts over the years, that's fine. I'm still kind of getting that message through, but to maintain the enthusiasm and that excitement for what you do while also having to go through the trials and tribulations of life and the own mistakes that you make and whatever are those setbacks, if you can really still hold on to that excitement you have and like the dedication to your craft, I think it's important. So the idea of success for me is going from mistake, failure to failure without losing touch with your craft and who you are through your craft. And then conversely, if you can go from super success to having these like big epic wins in your life, but maintain your humility and be like a real grounded person so that you're not so lost in thinking I am a genius and no one can touch me. I think there's that middle ground there where we should all kind of have that checks and balances. I think that for me is what I've really learned in the ups and downs of at least my journey.
Absolutely. And you're learning so much as you've gone through, honestly, just the past 6 years, maybe. And we've all gone through a lot with the world and how it's changed. But I noticed in particular, maybe you had done a few things differently when you started Shia Cheval. And you've learned from, the 2 years in between what had happened in 2020 and then Shia Cheval and launching that brand and how you're approaching probably business differently now moving forward into the future. Can you kind of talk about that for everyone who may be starting a new brand or, shifting gears a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. It was interesting because going from the chapter of wedding dress design into launching a small business, I really pushed my limits because I was so much more focused on design and creative direction and all that kind of stuff. And to go into the business role was really challenging for me because one, I don't consider myself very good at delegating. I also tend to be a yes person, right? Saying yes to the dress forever. And that just goes into other areas of your life. And so I really had a fast track approach to like, okay, what's a P&L statement? How do you manage expenses? Like, what do you have to think about long term? What's the inventory structure and management? And like, really, I took it on head first, and I had an amazing, loyal business partner who has, been by my side from the very beginning of everything. And that was really helpful. And I learned the beauty of like a really good partnership. And now that I'm like, okay, now I've got this intellectual property and I'm allowed to go back into design, I think my grounding is that, okay, I've learned a lot about myself. There's been a lot of character development the last few years, like what are the things that I really want to hold on to and make more time for and prioritize, and what things do I really need to pass off to other people that are way better at doing things than I am. And I think there's also this mentality that, you go through these experiences and you learn a lot coming out of it. And then all of a sudden, oh, you have the answer, right? Like you're on the other side of it. And I actually don't really feel like that. I feel like I'm not really an authority. I feel like I'm a little more brazen, and I'm definitely confident in my skill sets, but I don't feel like I've learned everything yet. And there's this quote that's like, oh, this isn't my first rodeo, is somebody says that is at their second rodeo, right? And that's a low amount of rodeos to really know your stuff still, So it's like, I'm on my second rodeo, and there are some parts that I definitely feel confident in, but there's a lot I still don't. And so I want to, really practice what I've been through and do it really well this time around and take my time.
Do you see yourself probably doing this on your own without a partnership the second go around?
I don't know. And that's such a good question because it really happened for me so quickly. I actually thought that this could potentially be like an 8-year lawsuit. You hear these things that you're like, oh my gosh, and so like you kind of have to put it in a box and say, okay, I'm going to go find a way forward and find a way to create, make shoes and do something else and change my name publicly and do all these things. And so when there was a settlement, and it actually was like, the rainbow is here. We're on the other side of the storm. It's very positive. You have your name, and here's the intellectual property. Like I never anticipated that. And so now that it's here, I almost want to hug it and like take a minute and really like
a really long hug, a really long hug.
Exactly. Like a really long hug, and like actually just breathe, like I really want to do that for a minute. And I also really want to pump out dresses, and like these women that have been so incredible in my life, that it's like post Hayley Paige brides, current Hayley Paige brides, future Hayley, like all these women, like I am so excited to just be there with them in whatever capacity they'll allow. But it's like, I also feel like I owe it to myself and to them to do it really, really well. And whether that's via a partnership or it's on my own, I just need to like be super thoughtful about it. So I'd say I'm open. I'm totally open to figuring out what that looks like.
And really what you're telling people is it's okay to take a pause, right? It's okay to look at what happened in the past, figure out where you're at now, not make rash decisions, hug the good, and then move forward where your heart and your mind is telling you where to go. I know previously you mentioned finding advocacy. In that respect, from a legal standpoint, how did your legal team help you through this period of time? And do you see yourself leaning on them in the future?
Oh yeah, I love my legal team. I feel so lucky to be able to say that, because so many people, whether their experiences were just, really, really challenging. My legal team was Haynes Boone and in part Louis Brisbois, and I just have utmost respect for everything that they have accomplished. And in a big way, I feel like this is theirs too, and it's a something to feel whole from and celebrated by. And they are somebody I would lean on probably for the rest of my life. But like I play for keeps now, especially when it comes to legal teams. So yeah, I think that is something to be really grateful for, is a good relationship with that, and just to feel a real sense of gratitude and what they accomplished. So yeah, and I also I feel like this was a whole level and like territory I knew nothing about. And now I no, not that I could ever go to law school or anything like that, but I appreciate it from a new perspective in all that they do. And I'm happy to be an advocate, which is exactly what A Girl You Might Know Foundation does. Is we like to provide referrals and resources to legal counsel, whether it's pro bono services or more affordable services, especially for young creators and artists that are looking to help build out their team of advocacy and learn about contracts and what terms and services they shouldn't agree to and all that. Because it's something that's so easily like kind of brushed off in all stages of life. If you're an influencer and you're doing a beauty ad and you're signing a quick contract and it says you can't do any other beauty for 3 years, like it could be your whole brand and you didn't even know that you can't promote other beauty products, stuff like that it's really important to kind of get ahead of it. And I'm happy to be the story of potentially what not to do. And if it happens, here's some other things you can do.
Well, the legal page is absolutely going to donate to this foundation. I think that is incredibly important, that people have access to really good legal representation and just getting the right answers for what they don't know, and having someone on their team in their corner. And for everyone tuning in, I highly recommend that you check out the foundation as well. And if you can even make a small donation, it's going to help our community of creatives and artists be able to get access to that. So I will make sure to link that in the show notes. In that same vein, Hayley, what recommendations do you have for small business owners, maybe without a lot of money? A lot of people are kind of bootstrapping things from the ground up. And if they don't have a lot, like what kind of, or maybe they don't even have a lot of influence per se, maybe, micro accounts, so to speak. What if they are in a contract negotiation situation? Do you have any recommendations on maybe how they would go about that or how they could look at that?
Absolutely. First, I want to just thank you for your generosity and supporting A Girl You Might Know Foundation. That is so wonderful of you. So thank you. I think my advice is that, when you're building out a business model, you tend to create these brackets of, okay, where you need to put money and how you're going to raise funding and where the capital is going to go. And if you're building a product, so much of your money goes into building the product, developing, production, what are you going to set for your budget? Do not skimp on the legal side. Do not create an entire bucket for that and really take that budget seriously on what you're going to need in terms of filing trademarks, protecting your domains, like put a bucket together for that, create a budget. And then I would also say another thing that's skimped on is insurance, to think about what kind of business insurance, general liability, product liability, what are you going to need in case something happens, and this is an area where you think about health insurance and all these things that you do to protect your life. You need to have these things for your business as well. And it's something that's oftentimes overlooked. It's an afterthought because you never anticipate for things to go wrong. And, when you're really, really tight on what you're building and you've got this really small budget, it almost becomes even more important just because the vulnerability is there and you're putting so much of your work and sweat equity into this that you owe it to yourself to also feel like it's protected too. I know there's a ton of free legal resources out there. A Girl You Might Know is just one of many that are doing great work to just help entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs, whether you're in a diversity group, whatever it is, it's good to research and devote a good amount of time to learning what resources are available just free for you. Because there's also a lot of law firms that have to commit a certain number of pro bono hours. And so to put a proper pitch deck together as to why you should be that candidate for pro bono hours is worth it. So I try to tell people that, and shout it as much as possible because there are people that want to see you succeed, really do. And find those people because they'll help you. I didn't actually invest in a mentor until the last 4 years. And I finally have an amazing business mentor that has made me see like an entirely different world when it comes to business. And, he's somebody I credit for a lot of the ways I look at things now, and so maybe someday when I get back into this, zone, I'll be able to be a mentor for somebody else in that way, to pass on the good juju.
Yeah, it's such good advice, right? Creatives might not have a lot of money when first starting out, but they certainly have a lot of resources and sure as heck can create a pitch deck to show an attorney why they would be a good, worthy cause for them to utilize their pro bono hours for. I'm so glad you brought that up. So how has your creative outlook changed at all with how you plan to run your businesses into the future? I know that you've mentioned having a business mentor, and we talked a lot about legal mentors as well. Do you have anyone else on your team now that you wish you would have had in your early 20s?
Yeah, I feel like the devotion to my craft has not wavered at all. Like I still feel so fazed by the world of wedding dresses and romance and two people choosing each other forever and being a part of that day in a very specific way. That's just something that is just here. It's like in my soul, and I was happy to wait as long as it took to be able to get back and do that. And so now I'm so excited to do it. And I'm really, really grateful that level of enthusiasm has not changed in all that's happened. And now I almost feel like it's more like, oh, we got to make up for lost time. And I want to go celebrate the Hayley Paige bride and then prepare for the future, all this stuff. So it's very, very positive. I would say that, learning what I've learned on the legal side, I've come to really, really respect what attorneys do and that they are all very specialized. And so it is okay to really take your time in finding the right attorney. You don't want to just say like, okay, I need a trademark attorney. I'm going to go, this one's good. You definitely want to, it's a relationship. And so you want to build and understand exactly what they do and feel really comfortable being able to ask those difficult questions. And, for some reason, I always feel awkward when I'm like, well, how much is this going to cost? And you have to ask those questions and you have to say like, I want to pay for the time, but I want a budget. So I need to make sure that I'm staying within that. And I found that the more hard conversations you have in your life, the more manageable your life becomes, when the more you push off those really hard conversations or those hard questions, the worse it gets. And, the unspoken expectations become future resentments. And so that mentality is very important in life as well as business. But I think right now having a business mentor, having legal counsel, somebody you can really rely on to look at all these things that I just don't understand. And then probably a person that's a really close friend that's not a yes friend. Somebody that knows you really well and is going to tell you when your blind spots creep up or, that, well, you're somebody that trusts everyone. So make sure you're trusting what they're doing and not just what they're saying. Having that advocate as a friend, I think is really great. But yeah, I would say building a little charrette around your life is very important. And hey, some people get cut from the team. It happens, but you can just move on. If it doesn't work out, it is okay. But for the most part, it's great to have the support system.
Yeah, my support system has also evolved over the years. I've been an entrepreneur for over a decade, and I was actually a wedding photographer. So when you talk about getting back into that space with couples and how much joy it brings you, I can definitely relate. And now, I have a financial advisor, business mentor, friends in the industry that I talk stuff through with. And really, everything that you just mentioned. It's so wonderful for everyone listening in to know that you really can surround yourself with people who are going to get you where you want to go. Hayley Paige, we are all really excited for you to experience it again. And the fashion world sure is too. We're all excited to see what you do with She is Cheval and Hayley Paige moving forward. Hayley, thank you so much for your time. I know how valuable it is in my community, and I cannot thank you enough for being willing to spend the past half an hour or so here with us to support all of us as creatives and artists. Are there any last parting words that you have that you would like to share?
Oh, any parting words? I used to sign my sketches with love, laughter, and a happily ever after. And then I might add to the end of that and make sure you lawyer up when you need to for your community. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
There you have it, friends. I appreciate you, Hayley Paige, so much, and best wishes for all that's to come in the future. We cannot wait to follow along and see this new, beautifully evolved version of yourself and all of the upcoming designs that you share with the world.
Thank you for the support.
Thank you all so much for listening into this episode. It would mean a lot if you shared your biggest takeaways, and be sure to tag the legal page and Miss Hayley Paige on Instagram so that we can know what resonated with you. Until next time.